إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. قال الله عز وجل في القرآن المجيد: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. صدق الله العظيم. أما بعد. We begin by praising Allah, our Creator, our Sustainer, the one who gave us everything that we have. We praise Him, we seek His help, and we ask for forgiveness from Him for all the mistakes that we are continuously making, and for all the times that we demonstrate impatience to His commands, His prohibitions, and His decrees. And we declare as Muslims that nobody deserves to be worshipped besides Allah. And we declare that Muhammad was the last and final prophet and messenger that has been sent for our guidance and the guidance of all people until the end of time. Brothers and sisters, I want you to ask yourself, why do you come to the masjid? If somebody were to ask you the question, why do you come to the mosque? What kind of answer would you give? If somebody asks you, why do you give charity? How would you respond? If somebody asked you, why do you struggle against oppression? What would you say? If somebody asks you, why do you tell the truth? Why do you speak the truth, even if it would harm you directly, but you would still speak the truth? Why would you do something like that when it's potentially not in your best worldly interest to do so? And if you think about it, people would give different answers to this question, because I've actually done the survey and I've asked different people the same question. And you find different answers. And some people would answer and say, why do you come to the mosque? I feel good. I feel this sense of spirituality inside the masjid. Other people will say, I come to the masjid because I want to learn. Other people will answer, I come to the masjid because I want my children to grow up loving the masjid and having a good balance. And other people will simply respond and say, I come to the masjid because I have to. I'm a male, I'm obligated to come for Jummah prayer, and therefore that's the reason why I come to the masjid. And then you ask people, why do they give charity? Some people will answer, say, in order to help the poor. I want to help them out. Other people say, I feel good that I'm redistributing wealth in society, and this is something that I need to get done. Why do you fight against oppression? It's the right thing to do. Or I support justice. Why do you tell the truth? It's very hard for people to answer that question. It's just right. You just do it. But when you look at all these answers, and it's fine to have all these different answers, ultimately, for a Muslim, every single thing we do is to earn the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That sounds very simplistic, but sometimes people get lost in all the other explanations, in all the other motivations, in all the other intentions that they may have, which are sub-intentions. And we need to stop, and we need to come back to the ultimate root, and we need to remind ourselves that whatever we do it ultimately to earn and gain the pleasure of our Creator, God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That needs to be the fundamental belief. It's so simple, but we need to remind ourselves of that. And there's a reason. Because sometimes we forget our true direction, where we're headed as Muslims. And what we end up doing is we end up worshiping other things besides Allah. There are people who end up worshiping social justice. And they think that every single thing they do is for the intention of acquiring and achieving social justice in the community. But that's not the reason. They forget that the core and the root of what we're doing everything for is to earn the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some people, they begin to worship the culture in which they're raised, the culture of their own people. and they forget to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some people, they worship what makes them feel comfortable. And if it's not feeling comfortable anymore, they're not interested in doing it. There are people who serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and then they say, when it doesn't suit me anymore, when I don't feel good doing these things anymore, when I don't feel good volunteering anymore, when I don't feel good that I'm giving charity anymore, I'm going to stop doing it. Because ultimately, they weren't really doing it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They were doing it because it made them feel good. And this is something we need to stop and we need to bring ourselves back, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Ya ayyuhan nasu u'budu rabbakum. O people, worship your Lord. He did not say worship yourselves. He did not say worship your culture. He did not say worship some justice aim. He did not say worship liberal values. He did not say worship this other thing. We have to, at the end of the day, we have to be worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And part of the problem is that there are some people who do not feel content in their heart when they're serving Allah. There's no contentment in their heart when they serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is what's called rida. Rida means that you're content. It means that you're pleased when you worship Allah. You're content and you're pleased when you're doing something in order to make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pleased with you. So this is what it comes down to. And what is contentment? Let's look at the understanding of what is this term rida, or contentment, being content with what you have. There's two aspects. The first aspect is coming from the individual, from the person, from you and me. What is that contentment? It's not disliking what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants and not disliking what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed for you. And it's not an easy thing. So let me give you an example. Meaning the first thing is that you do not hate the teachings that Allah has given you. You don't hate His commands. You don't hate His prohibitions. You don't say, you know what, I wish we could eat pork, but it really sucks that we can't. You don't say that. You don't think that. You remove that from your mind. You don't say, I wish I could have a girlfriend. I wish I could have a boyfriend, but we can't. It's so, it's so unfair. We can't have this in Islam. It means that you're not content with the teachings and the guidance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you. And we need to establish, as Muslims, we need to establish that contentment in the heart, is that I'm happy with what my Creator has prescribed for me. It's not an easy thing, but we need to get to that level. We need to have that, because once you have it, then everything else is easy for you. Everything else is downhill for you. And the second aspect of contentment is not hating the circumstances that you're in. Being content with where Allah has put you financially, with where Allah has put you in your family, with where Allah has put you in this country, with where Allah has put you in the type of job that you have. Being content with that is from the human being. Not going and making statements like, man, life sucks. You hear that from people. Say, life sucks. And then they say, what do they say? They say, life is cruel. Right? They said, life is cruel. This is a statement of kufr. It's a statement of disbelief. It's completely against everything that the true believer stands for. Because when you say life is cruel, you actually mean that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah the Creator who set up all these things, that He's cruel. Na'udhu billah, which is not true. It's not the reality. Allah is not cruel. And Allah tells us that He's not cruel. But when you make these statements, and these are cliches, these are things that people say all the time, and it's very, very problematic. People are cruel. Yes, there are people in this world who are very cruel, but you don't blame it on Allah. And you don't say, well, life is that way, and life is this, and life is that, because ultimately you're describing something else. This is rida, this is contentment from the perspective of the human being. And then there's contentment or rida from the perspective of Allah, from the perspective of God. And what is that? Is that Allah is content and He is happy when His servant is doing what they're supposed to be doing. Think about that. There's two aspects of, it's not just about you only. You have to look at things from the perspective of Allah. What makes you content, and what makes Him content, and what makes Him happy. And what a true believer needs to do is they need to realize, they need to get to the point that they become content and happy when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is content and happy with them. And they are not content and not happy with themselves when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also not that content with them and not happy with them. Once you connect the two together and you make your happiness conditional upon the happiness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the satisfaction of Allah, that's when we arise to the level of being true believers. And it's difficult because you will find that there are two people in exactly the same circumstances, same job, same country, same family background, same economic situation, and one of them is content and happy, and the other one is going crazy and they're miserable in their mind, and they're complaining non-stop and they hate the situation in which they're in. What is the difference between the two people? Externally, they're in exactly the same circumstances, but internally, their states are completely different. Because there's something in them, there's something in that one person who's developed this aspect of rida, that they're content. But there are challenges. The reason why people cannot get to this level is because we live in an instant gratification culture. The culture is that you have to be immediately pleased with everything that happens. You need to see results right now. Everything you do, it needs to feel good at the moment. Real fast, real quick. You want to lose weight, buy the little pill, you just swallow it, you don't have to do anything, and all of a sudden it starts working. And we know this doesn't work. The same thing, you have to put effort, you have to go through, as they say, no pain, no gain, and you have to be willing to go through that, and that's the difficult part. And then the other aspect is that you find the media, you find pop culture, you find, all the circumstances around us are marketing things which are not real. They're literally marketing things which don't exist in reality, and we assume that that's reality. We're zoomed in and presented this weird false picture of reality. I'll give you an example. Example is Beverly Hills. Around the world, people have television sets. Even in the most remote villages of Africa, they have television sets, and they're watching certain American TV shows here and there. And when they think of Beverly Hills, they think of the richest, nicest, most amazing place where everyone is wealthy and they're just walking around enjoying themselves. And I'm telling you personally, I've literally traveled around so many different countries. I go to India and people come and tell me, so I wonder, you're from California where Beverly Hills is? I say, yeah, where Beverly Hills is. Oh, it must be amazing and everything. I said, there are aspects of Beverly Hills that you haven't seen. I drove through Beverly Hills and all of a sudden, I see homeless people on the street. Did you imagine that? Did you think that Beverly Hills was like that? No, but it looks like it's all the rich people and the stores and everything. I said, no, that's not the case. I went to Bosnia. They said the same thing. First thing I tell people I'm from California, they ask me, Los Angeles, Hollywood, Beverly Hills. And there's this picture that's sold in their minds. I went to the United Arab Emirates, same thing. I went to South Africa, same thing. They think Beverly Hills is a bunch of, limousines and Mercedes all over the place. Went to Singapore, even the United Kingdom, people are saying, you're from America? From California? Must be Beverly Hills. That's this picture that's being presented in the media, but that's not the reality. You look at the statistics and you find that 26%, what do they show in the TV? Bunch of rich, white people that are happy. 26% of Beverly Hills consists of Persian Jews. Even the mayor is an Iranian American, right? You find that 21% of the city is not even white people. 9% of the population lives under the national poverty level. So what happens is that these pictures are being marketed as, look at this reality, but it's a fake reality. And when you buy into that, you start thinking that your life is miserable. You start thinking that everything about you and everything that you're doing, I wish I could be like that person. I wish I could be like that celebrity. I wish I could live that life that the person in the TV is having. But that's not real. It's not real, and when we're marketed with these things, we're never going to be content or happy because we think everything else around us is perfect, because that's what we're seeing. On Facebook, the people that say, look, I'm having lunch here, I'm having dinner with my family. And you think, why doesn't my husband, why doesn't my wife have dinner with the family like they do? They just happen to be posting it at the time. Most people end up posting more positive things than negative things because that gets more likes. That gives them more self-satisfaction. But if you're going to judge based upon that, we're going to fall into a major problem. So here are some angles of contentment that we need to understand. So from one perspective, we need to realize that the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should be our number one priority. It should not be about our own happiness. As Muslims, we need to be willing to set that aside and say, I'm going to be happy when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to be happy with me, and that's what will actually make me content. And if you look at it in the Quran, there's a few places where it mentions this statement. It says, رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ وَرَضُوا عَنْهُ. It's talking about the believers, the early believers, and it says, رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ. And we hear this statement being said a lot, in Muslim circles. It means Allah was pleased with them. And when you make the dua, you say, may Allah be pleased with them. But radiyallahu anhum, Allah is speaking in the Quran. He says, Allah was pleased with them, waradu an, and they were pleased with Him. This is the description of believers in paradise, in this context, in Surah Al-Bayyinah. That when you enter paradise, and inshallah all of us will enter paradise, when you get there, you want to make sure that Allah is pleased with you, and then you will be pleased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. The two are conditional together. So here's the solution. The solution that we can take some practical steps is number one. Remember that you need to reflect upon the wisdom of why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed certain things, and it's going to increase your contentment. I'll give you an example. Somebody recently from our community, they went and visited a region in Greece. And those of you who are following the news, you know what's happening in Greece with their financial situation and the European Union and the loans that happened, they took and all of that stuff. Major economical crisis in Greece at the moment. And he says, coming back, he says, it increased his faith because he realized that Allah has prohibited riba, interest, for a reason. He prohibited the giving of interest and the taking of interest. And this is something we can stay away from. Say, we shouldn't do it, but we don't realize the wisdom. Sometimes we say, but it's just a small amount, taking a little bank account, a few percentage points here and there, from a CD account or a savings account. It's not going to kill anybody. What's the big deal? But when you see it manifested on a macro scale, you start to appreciate. You say there's a wisdom why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did. There's a wisdom why our Creator prohibited this for us. And your faith rises up. And you become more content in everything you're doing. And this is what happened to the brother, and this is what happens to people. Drinking alcohol is prohibited in Islam. If you, and inshallah, may Allah protect us. But if you were the victim, or your family was the victim of a DUI, somebody's driving under the influence and then something happened, your faith and your confidence in why Allah prohibited this drink, even small amounts, you'll start to reflect on the wisdom and say, now I see why Allah did this. Now I'm content that, we shouldn't even drink a sip. Because if that guy had not drunk a sip, he would not have drunk more. And he would not have driven that car, and my family would not have been in the situation that they're in right now. And then you begin to see the wisdom behind those things. And if you have a daughter or you have a son and they ended up committing adultery, and then all of a sudden, let's say your daughter is pregnant outside of wedlock, and then you start realizing, you say, you know what, I didn't realize what's the big deal about dating. Why are these casual interactions, in coffee shops and at school and so what's the big deal? Guy and a girl, they're just chatting in the corner, it's not a big deal. But in Islam, we're not allowed to do that. You have to have some restrictions on gender interaction. And some people think, it's not a big deal, man, it's harmless. But then when it hits you, when it strikes you, when it comes in your own family, when it comes in your own life, when it comes to your best friend, somebody you know, then you start reflecting and saying, now I see the wisdom. I wish I would have seen it before. Now I see the wisdom of why Allah has prescribed this. And now I'm content with His commands and His prohibitions. So the more you reflect upon the wisdom behind these things, the more you can instill that contentment into your own heart. So that's number one. Number two, reflect upon the circumstances that Allah has put. It's difficult to do that, to see, oh, why are people dying over there? Why did my relative have to get cancer and is in the hospital right now? It's not easy for people to be content with that. And some people who don't have that strong faith, they start to lose it. Why, Allah? Why did this have to happen? Why did it have to be my family member? Why couldn't you just give him a cold or a flu instead of this ultimate illness? And it's hard for people to have that rida and that contentment. But when you zoom in and you look at the deeper meaning, there's something there. Sometimes you can see it, sometimes you can't. You look at the famous singer, Yusuf Islam, formerly Cat Stevens. He says something. He says, getting tuberculosis was the best thing that ever happened to me in my life. If somebody were to hear him, say, this guy's crazy. But then when you hear the rest of his story, he says, this is what woke me up. This is what made me start searching for the truth, and I found Islam because of this. And had I not gone through this, I probably would have been just touring and drinking and doing all the things that I was doing in the past. It wakes you up. And I'll tell you personally, getting into a car accident while street racing was the best thing that ever happened in my life, because that's what brought me closer to Islam. It made me start thinking about life and start thinking about death. And someone hears that statement and they say, what? Getting in a car accident is a good thing? I said, for me, it was the best thing that ever happened. Really, you can ask my family, they'll say that. It's the best thing that's ever happened to him in his life. Because when the more we reflect upon the wisdom behind why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does some of these things, the more we read the stories of the prophets in the Quran, the more we read about the lives of the companions, the more we begin to reflect and we see the wisdom in what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does, and the more we learn to be content before we have to go through that trial. Number three, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make you content with the circumstances that you have. There are things which are beyond your control. And you need to realize that when you're not in control of something, stop trying to be in control. There are some things you have control over, you can put some effort and try to change them. And there are some things which you cannot. So you need to learn to let go when you realize it's not in your hands. And this is exactly what we do when we make istikhara, the special supplication, the dua that we make before making a decision. Part of that supplication is ardini bi. We ask Allah, oh Allah, if this is good for me, let it happen, and then make me content with your decision. Make me happy with what you've decided for me, whether it was good for me or not. Number four, focus on Allah and pay attention to the reward. Focus on the reward, and it's much easier to get through these difficulties in life when you realize something better is coming. Let go of things you cannot control and accept the reality of life the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created it. And when you do these things, you'll find that it's easier for you to be content with what Allah has prescribed for you and to be content with the circumstances that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put you in. We ask Allah to help us and forgive us for all of our shortcomings. Ameen. Astaghfirullah li wa lakum wa li sa'iril muslimin fastaghfiruhu innahu huwal ghafurur rahim. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een, amma ba'd. If we can please move forward and fill in the gaps, inshallah. There's some people standing. You make room for people. Inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make room for you in paradise. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the greatness of the reward will come from the greatness of the trial. The greater the trial that you encounter in your life, the greater your reward is going to be. And then he says, whenever Allah loves a group of people, He tests them. When He loves them, He tests them. And then this is the take home. He said, فَمَنْ رَضِيَ فَلَهُ الرِّضَى. Whoever is content will have contentment. And he said, وَمَنْ سَخِطَ فَلَهُ السَّخَطِ. And whoever is displeased will have displeasure. This is a hadith, it's Hasan, it's in Tirmidhi. Basically what the Prophet ﷺ is saying is that whatever's going to happen to you in this life is going to happen anyways. If you want to be content with what happens to you, and you feel peace, and you feel ease, and you say, you know what, this is from Allah, I'm going to bear this until circumstances change, then you know what you're going to have in your heart? You're going to have contentment. And he said, whoever has displeasure, if you want to be upset, you want to say, why does this have to happen? I hate that this is happening. You know what, I can't believe this. Why does Allah have to do this? He says, you know what's going to happen? What's going to be in your heart? It's going to be displeasure. It's not going to change anything. It's not going to change your circumstance. It's not going to change your situation. So basically what he's saying is, it's about your internal state. What do you want your internal state to be? You want to walk around stressed out, upset, disappointed, frustrated all the time? Or do you want to walk around as somebody who's content because you realize this is the way things are, Allah has a greater plan, and when you're patient and when you persevere through this patience, that's where your real reward is going to be. So be among that category of people who accept contentment. We ask Allah, oh Allah, help us and guide us at all times. Oh Allah, help those people who are suffering and those people who are going under difficulties. Oh Allah, forgive them for their sins and let them patiently persevere through these things. Oh Allah, let us accept the circumstances that we're in and not be upset about them. Oh Allah, let us do what we're required to do in these circumstances that would please you. Oh Allah, help us and guide us to practice all your teachings and all the things that you have brought us. آمين سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. A few announcements. Tonight we have a Friday Family Night program about dangerous social media trends threatening your teenager's safety. Very important for parents. Dangerous social media trends which will threaten the safety of your teenager, or maybe a few different ages as well. Come, it's going to be presented by Brother Hutan Afzal tonight at 8 p.m. inshallah. IAOC has a summer picnic on Sunday, August 23rd. We have tickets being sold in the lobby, so get your tickets. Good family event to be in. The Hajj, we still have some room for people who would like to attend the Hajj. I'm going to be leading the group with Dar es Salaam Travels. If you want more information about it, you can go to the office or you can call the office phone number. The College of Islamic Studies is a great opportunity to really learn about your deen, to learn about Islam. And classes are going to start October 13th, but registration is up on our website already. You can go to collegeislam.com, or you can go to our registration table, inshallah, and you can register for classes. This is for adults, and adults need Islamic education. Because I keep hearing all the time, I would like to register my 7-year-old. So how about yourself? No, not me. I have a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old. I don't need to learn about Islam. Brothers and sisters, everyone needs to learn about Islam. I guarantee you, I'm not teaching 25 hours each class for nothing. All right? Trust me. There's stuff that we need to learn. So please take some time. Try one class. I guarantee you it's going to make a change in your life. So check out our CIS table outside as well. And lastly, there's going to be Ask the Sheikh table, where you can ask me any questions, inshallah, short questions that are there. And we need somebody to help set up this table. I know a lot of people are benefiting from it. If you feel value in it or you'd like to help out, please see me at the table and say, this is my name, my phone number, my email. I can help set up the table every Friday or every other Friday or whatever it may be. It only takes 10 minutes, but you don't do it because you feel good about it. Do it because you're serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by doing this. Every single person who gets a question answered, you're going to get part of the reward for helping set up that table. And it literally only takes 10 minutes. So see me at that table, inshallah ta'ala, if you want to do that. Wa aqimus salam.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan